Morning, Facebook Live. We are having a wonderful show today. We're going to have Dr. Aaron Chapa here on KHEA Radio. We're going to kick it on the FM and get things going. And we are good to go. Welcome, Dr. Chapa.
Welcome, welcome. I'm glad to be here with you this morning. What's kicking in your world today, my brother?
Just another Tuesday. I was thinking today, Dr. Chapa, most people are excited to have a day of the year, to themselves, like their birthday, or sometimes you get a proclamation and a day is named after you.
Yes.
I feel like you have a day of the week. It's Tuesday. Tuesday is Dr. Chapa Day. I see I'm feeling Tuesday is your day.
The warm and cozies of myself, just thinking, man, that is a good feeling to know that I have evolved to 52 days out of the year of mine. And actually 53 if you think about it.
Sometimes you get lucky and get an extra.
That's right, because that birthday, that is pretty legit. I'll take it.
52 days are yours.
Man, I'm just saying, I think even... what's her name? Alice in Wonderland they were talking about, you have 364 unmarried birthdays. But I mean, if I'm going to get 52 birthdays or special days for myself, I'm going to just take it. That's called positivity. That just lights up the heart, man. That lights up the mind.
Your head just exploded.
Maybe.
I'm sorry for the people back at your office today.
We may need to go. We may need to move on with the show today. So, man, it's good to be here. I'm glad that we are back at it, teaching people at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center. We believe that we can help everybody with anything that they're dealing with, symptom-wise, ailment-wise. Anything your body can develop, it can undevelop. And it is amazing to me I've been very mindful over the years to never take for granted the amazing aspects of what the body is capable of, even when it's in a very, very bad place. Immunologically, sick-wise, disease, diagnoses, whatever. And, it's just the testament and the power of what the body is capable of when we care for it and when we change whatever we were doing to develop a disease process, the things that we begin to see happen when we change the formula. I look at a lot of disease processes like something we develop, that we are following a recipe to build. And if we can teach people how to live better, be better, and stay better through lifestyle modifications, through diet modifications, through supplemental programs, just the simple teaching of, evaluating what you eat. I mean, you are a product of what you are putting in your body. They used to say you are what you eat, and I changed it to you become what you eat, because if you want to become a sugar-filled lump of dough, eat those. If you want to be fresh and vibrant, eat fresh and vibrant foods. And we will find that your longevity, that's how long you can live out life, your vitality, that means what your energy that you're able to put into the longevity of time, is in your control in a lot of ways. And not to say that, we can predict when we're going to tap out and die off, but we know we're in a degenerating earth suit, but we also know that there are things we can do lifestyle-wise to modulate or to help the body adapt in order to maximize our time. And that is health and wellness, and prevention is what we're all about, and teaching people to take the bull by the horns.
So, Dr. Chapa, what are we talking about today? I feel like it has to do with your brain. Is that what you said that we were going to talk about? I love the brain.
Yes, we are going to definitely talk about brain. We're going to talk about neural inflammation, another word for the brain. When you speak to neural or nervous system actions, we're going to look at inflammation in the brain. What causes inflammation? We know that inflammation shrinks the brain. And I bet you money that anybody listening would not want to do anything to shrink the brain. Does that make sense? I mean, you were just kind of talking about a second ago how when put under certain types of stress that you lose time. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how the brain is such a fantastic tool and how it works and how it develops. It's probably in my opinion, the most important organ in our body. So I am a huge fan of skydive. I've actually gone skydiving twice.
Yeah.
Skydive Galveston. You land on a beach when you jump out of the plane. So you
Like
literally
you're like floating over the water.
Yeah, you go
awesome.
you climb up and you're over the air, and when you jump out of the plane, you're looking down at the ocean below you, which is the craziest like feeling in the whole wide world. I love it. It was so thrilling to me. So I went a second time. The guy, Simon, is the owner of Skydive Galveston, and he said, "Hey, I got a new parachute in. I need to test it. Do you want to come down and test it with me? I'll let you jump for free." And I was like, "Oh, yes, 100%. Let's go." I wasn't worried about anything with the new parachute. Like, I trust Simon, and it's going to be fantastic, right? So, wonderful opportunity. And I jumped, and I landed, and I said, "Man, this was longer. Like, this felt longer this time. Did we do anything different?" And he goes, "No, the first time you jump out of the plane, you lose 30 seconds because your brain is actually looking for a solution of, hey, what's going on? What's happening here?" So it's like playing back all of the scenarios. And it was interesting because that's not the first time that's happened to me, because I was actually sitting in this chair a few years ago, and somebody did a rear naked chokehold on me, and I actually passed out. I didn't tap. Like, he actually knocked me out. And I remember, like, in that moment, like, moments of my life, like, you know how they joke about that? Like, you see moments of your life flash
before your eyes.
Seriously, it happened. And I asked a brain person the same situation, like, about that situation, and they said, yeah, what's happening is your brain is looking for solutions, and it's living its past experiences to get there. And it just blows my mind how that happens.
Well, gosh, we could go into so many doors there, because you got the first experience jumping out the airplane, and your brain is in an adrenaline rush, extreme state, never been in that space before. And probably why they go tandem, right? Like, you have a partner and somebody that's done this a time or two and very comfortable jumping, and so that they can keep you cognizant and aware. But even in that experience, your mind is playing tricks on you. Your mind is going to survive. An interesting thing that I've learned in brain classes, I mean, I've been able to study with some really smart, humans that know a lot about the brain, and they would say things like the brain has this ability to protect itself. Its number one goal is to protect itself. So and so, like, when you go to a fall, you have these reflexes that automatically will, stop your brain from making impact to the floor. You'll see this in little babies because they have such strong primal reflexes that you could roll them to the left and you'll see their left extensor muscles kick on and their right flexor muscles kick on, and their body will funk, and it'll to go to catch. And you can simulate that sort of thing just by rolling the body, rolling the head. If you think about what the brain really is, if it is to protect itself, even sitting in this chair is safer than you and I standing while doing the radio. Because technically, our brain is farther from the ground, and you have receptors in your body, proprioception, that knows where you are in space at any given time.
And I think that's why, like, fighters or people who are in golf or football or any of these sports, these athletes, they train so much, is because they're conditioning their brain to accept this. So, like, even like, when you get choked out, like I did earlier, they tell you to go get choked out. Or if you're training for, like, the military or police, they spray your eye, they tase you. So then you've experienced that before, so your brain can actually navigate what that situation looks like in a real situation.
And that's called adaptation, and that's one of the most amazing things about the brain that we want to tap into, is that the brain is constantly learning. It's constantly adapting. It's constantly creating a safe space for itself, and by putting yourself in challenging situations, continually pushes the brain outside of its boundaries and comfort zones so that it never stops developing. And so your brain is always developing. It's always learning. Like, there's no amount of hard drive that you can't expand the like in a computer. There's only so much you can put into that hard drive before it taps out. Your brain, on the other hand, it will continue to thrive given two circumstances. It's fed well, and we keep the inflammation down. And so because if you're stimulating the brain and you're fed well and the inflammation's down, your bandwidth is exponential, and that is something that is really a wonderful piece of what we have in our all of our melons. We got this brain up there that is working. Last week we were talking a little bit about brain fog, and it is interesting to say that whenever they look at the brain, they know that when stress levels go up, high cortisol is stimulated. Cortisol is a hormone that is produced that will cause the brain to shrink. It restricts blood flow to the brain. And you actually go into your what we call your primal brain, your brainstem, and you start doing what we call reactionary activity. You resort back to the primal reactions of your youth, and you're not thinking through the process. Again, while what you're saying about getting choked out or training, mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
Right.
You gotta make. The great Satchel Paige was always the baseball player. He was he outlasted many people in the baseball age bracket. There's always what's the lifespan of a player? And they say, oh, it's this age or this age. Well, this guy broke those records, and somebody finally asked him, what's your stance on aging? He goes, well, it's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And so he never would tell people his age, because he didn't want people, putting that negative energy on him. And wow, like that's a cool thing. It's a mind game.
We're seeing that right now with Tom Brady. What is he, like 52 and playing in the NFL now? He's not 52, but
still.
he could probably play. You've seen that meme where it's like Tom Brady in the year 2052 versus his son in the Super Bowl. We're so excited for that game.
Isn't he also he's the same guy on the commercials that where they have him have him plugged in on the insurance commercials? Is it the same guy?
No, that's Aaron Rodgers, I think.
No, I think it's Tom Brady. And it's one of those insurance or maybe not insurance, maybe it's a rental car deal, and they're both sitting there, and he's got the little like Iron Man attachment, charging his batteries.
I haven't seen that.
I don't know, and I don't watch enough TV to know either. But I've seen it, and I think it's the same guy. But at the end of the day, it's like there's this recharge, and what if it is mind over matter, and what if you're sitting here listening to this talk today, and you're thinking, oh man, like my brain doesn't work well. I don't remember names. I don't remember words. I can't memorize scripture. I mean, I've sat in Bible studies with some really smart scientists, really smart business owners, really smart, savvy humans, and we're talking about scripture memory, and they look back at me and they go, "Oh, I can't do that," and I'm like, "What?" I say, well, what's your phone number? And they tell you right off the bat. I say, well, what year were you born? Oh, they tell me right off the bat. And I can say, well, what's your wife's phone number? And they can tell me right off the bat. They can, what's your address? They tell me how to get back to your house. And they have all these memories and databases of how to do certain things, but yet for some reason, we have believed the lie that we can't. And if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, you are right.
Right.
And how scary is that?
That's crazy.
I mean, and so, but what we know about stress, and we definitely know we live in a world of stress today. Stress is one of the number one things that drives inflammation and drives cortisol up, causes that restriction in blood vessels, and causes the brain to shrink, especially in the area of the hippocampus, which is the brain's memory center. And so if you have struggle in your brain, good news, there's hope for you. There's still stuff that you can do to maximize the impact of your brain and keep the inflammation down, to keep the stimulation high, and change the food and fuel intakes so that your body is constantly able to keep up with the demands that you're asking of it. And when I think John Kennedy said that the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining, which means in your youth, right now, wherever you're at, if you're still upright, you have a chance to change the dynamics of your brain. And, so what I thought we would talk about a little bit today is some of the different ways that, one, inflammation can come on, and then talk about some of the nutrients that drive the brain towards balance again and brings function back into the brain. And so what drives this neural inflammation, this brain inflammation? And there's a lot of them, and some of them are going to be very obvious. Some of them might not be as obvious. But, when we look at neural inflammation, we're looking at things that mess with neurotransmitters and how abundant the neurotransmitters are in the brain. We're looking at how effective is the brain able to detoxify. Like, yes, your brain detoxifies. How well can your brain rejuvenate and regenerate itself during sleep? And whenever I was talk about brain fog, man, I have to take a step back and go, I mean, where would I start if somebody had Alzheimer's? Where would I start if somebody had dementia? Where would I start if somebody just had, general mind fatigue? Like a lot of people post-COVID, a lot of the post-COVID long hauler syndrome, it's about brain fog and memory lapses. Like their brain is just not able to keep up like it used to. And I take a step back and go, all right, well, if any of those things that people are dealing with, I mean, if something as simple as names, numbers, and words, but something to the effect that they go, I can tell you, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done. I can't think anymore. I'm scattered. I just can't sit. I can't even sit still long enough in order to get focused. And we've got to figure out a way to manage that. So, what do you think some of the obvious brain inflammatory drivers are in our lifestyle today? What would you guess?
Food?
Mm-hmm. Of course. So
that's number one, right?
That would be, I would say for sure number one. If you put junk in, junk out, it's the kind of the mantra. If you are consuming garbage and expecting your brain to fuel itself really well, it'd be like putting poor quality gas in your gas tank and wondering why it gums up and the engines don't last as long, right? And so why would we put poor quality food in what you said is the most important organ in the whole body? You know what I mean? But we do it every day.
Right.
Sometimes willingly. Sometimes we maybe don't realize that it was only healthy food because it was marketed to us as healthy. I mean, that happens, right?
Right.
And so we have to definitely take a look at that. Definitely, food impacts the brain every time you consume a food source, whether it's real or whether it's make-believe. And what we've already said about if you eat make-believe food, the best you'll ever have is
make-believe health.
That's right, make-believe health. Good memory. And so what is another substrate or consumption item that could be a neural inflammatory driver, a brain reducing agent?
Sleep. Lack of sleep.
Yes.
Lack of sleep. See, I'm on a roll.
Dude, you are doing good. A lack of sleep.
We didn't talk about this before.
No, we didn't.
Promise.
No, he has no notes in front of him. And for sure, sleep. Your brain gets a bath first thing in the first 3 hours of sleep. So if you're not getting good quality sleep, meaning you're watching the screen before bed, that reduces melatonin.
Right.
And therefore, you're not going to get down into your sleep cycles as quickly as you could if you let your body unwind according to the natural circadian rhythm that you have. Okay? So if you're tossing and turning all night and you're or watching movie reels in your mind, you're dreaming excessively, you wake up more sleepy or tired than when you went to bed. Those are indicators that your brain did not regenerate itself and your brain is not refreshed and ready for the day. That is a absolute indicator that now I'm going to ask it to run again today, and I'm not going to sleep again good tonight, possibly. And if this becomes a reoccurring pattern, neural inflammation persists, which is a heat. It's like friction. It's inflammation. And that inflammation your brain does not like.
So if we're only sleeping for 2 hours a night, we're probably not doing too well. Is that what you're saying? Is that because I heard the first 3 hours, so we at least need 3 hours of sleep
to get a bath.
to get a bath.
Yeah,
okay.
For your brain lymphatic system to bathe itself. Isn't that crazy? It takes 3 hours to take a bath for your brain. And so your brain is going through these sleep cycles every 90 minutes.
REM, right?
And so, yeah, you have different layers of sleep down into the depths. And if you don't hit those hours, and I would say 6 is the absolute minimum. You really need to be in the 7 zone for maximizing health. 7 to 8, hours of sleep would be the ideal. But 6 would be the absolute bare bones minimum. Or you are increasing inflammation in the brain, therefore potentially increasing your risk for dementia, Alzheimer's, and other neurodegenerative faculties. Like you lose the ability to keep up, and that's the wear out process, the accelerated aging process.
Did you see the other day? I saw this in a news article, so I don't know. Like today, you got to be skeptical of everything, but
yeah.
somebody actually
healthy skepticism.
Yes. But somebody actually came, through Alzheimer's, had Alzheimer's for years. This is a 97-year-old man, and then at 97, no longer had Alzheimer's anymore.
Yep.
Isn't that crazy? Usually
how does that stuff happen, right?
Right.
And who knows? I'd love to read that story because I had a 95-year-old come to see us at my first clinic when I was in South Shore, and his daughter was bound and determined to help him. And he would always come in, and he would be in his walker, and he would just read books. I'd never talk to him, very rarely would I ever talk to him. I'd say hi, of course, but me and the daughter did all the talking on his behalf, and we would build programs and teach her what to feed Dad and all this stuff. And interestingly, the 15 years prior that he had 15 years stuck in the brain like this, like in the brain in this sedative state, if you will. And the daughter started changing his diet, forcing him to take supplements. And she didn't let him off the hook. It was amazing. And within 6 months, we had reduced several of his medications and saw just an amazing change in how effective he was. He was starting to engage in conversation on his own, and then they, within the first 9 months, they took him to a family reunion, and he started telling stories of the past. Like he started remembering stuff and started remembering people. And I think he either had gone to 2 or 3 family reunions over the 2 years that I got to work with him. And but his daughter and his granddaughter told me that he had the best 2 years that I got to work with him from 95 to 97 were his best years in the last 17. And so we didn't necessarily completely take him out of Alzheimer's, but we did in some respects give him an opportunity to come back to reality and be with his family and empower that departure. And they have good memories now of him in his latter days instead of those 15 years of him being locked in to the brain not performing. And that's an advanced extreme case, but that is inflammation. What is another inflammatory driver, do you think? We got diet, we got sleep. We're looking for inflammation on the brain, anything that can reduce the brain size. What do you got? What do you think?
No, I can't say that. I was going to say your spouse, but...
well, you could say negativity, negative people. So
okay.
We might need to pull the negative card and say, hey, you are a product of the things you read, the people you associate with, and the things you listen to. And so
people you associate with.
If you're listening or hanging around negative influences, I would imagine for sure that is not on my list, but I like where you're going and I like where your head's at, because again, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, if you are looking through a lens of negativity, you won't even think that you can change, right?
Right.
Change your habits, change your life. My wife just, shared a book with me called "Change Your Words, Change Your Marriage." Whoa, And
Wow.
I mean, I hope that wasn't like a direct, hit to the Death Star. Like maybe I need to change. Maybe it's a message, a subliminal message that she's given me to change my words. But the reality is it's a reminder that we know the tongue is a double-edged sword. We know that the tongue can't be tamed. We know that the tongue is the only tool in the world that the more it's used, the sharper it gets, as opposed to most tools get dull and worn out. The tongue, however, the more it's used, and especially on that negative front, can become very, very destructive, very, very sharp in how it's used. So yes, I think that I could totally put that in my neural inflammation basket of things to not do, is associate with negative or negative people, listen to negative things. I mean, I've even caught myself going back to some of my 90s music and going, man, I don't really need to listen to this right now. This is not in the least something that is fruitful. When the Bible says, think on such things, the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, kindness, and self-control. Like we get lax on what we allow in, is when we let, I think, the enemy come to the table.
Yeah, sorry, Dr. Chapa. No bop for you.
No bop. No
bop. Or Backstreet Boys and Sync. No, can't have that.
So what else? What else could drive inflammation in the brain? Some of these might start getting a little trickier. And there might be some ideas on Facebook land for those live listeners.
Yeah, if you're tuning in right now, you're listening to KHEA Radio 99.5 FM. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Share this out. Tell a friend. Tune in. Comment along. We'll read some of those comments out loud today if we get a chance.
There's two obvious ones, I think. I mean, okay, I'll just help you out. What do people like to do on Friday night?
Drinking.
Yeah.
Well, see, I don't think of those things. I don't do that stuff.
Well, I know. See, that's good. That's why I had to help you. I had to pitch you one down the middle.
Yeah, drinking, partying, that kind of stuff.
What about smoking? So alcohol, smoking, these could be consumptive things that are what we call neural inflammatory drivers that cause the brain to overheat and to burn out and to be stressed. And so, this is a lifestyle thing that is very, look, think about going through COVID. Nobody wants to replay COVID PTSD moment, right? But here's the thing. What the alcohol stores remained open when the churches were forced to close.
That's crazy.
I mean, you know what I mean? Talk about having our priorities, mismatched and not recognizing where our help comes from. We were, in a sense, encouraging people to stay in their homes and encourage people to drink themselves silly or find a pastime, smoking maybe, or whatever other bad habit they might have picked up. Now, these next couple are a little different and not necessarily that things would probably think about. But this could be things like underlying stealth pathogens. What is a stealth pathogen, and how would it affect our brain? A stealth pathogen...
That sounds like something in Star Wars.
It's right.
Okay.
Totally.
I figured that's what we're talking about here.
And so stealth, meaning like it's under the cover.
Oh, okay.
It's running low to the ground. You can't see it on radar. And it's easily able to hide, but these are bacteria or viruses that run low and are able to deceive the immune system. And I think that some of the deception on the immune system isn't because the bug is so savvy, rather that the bug has learned to adapt and the body is nutritionally deficient. Okay, and this is where our talk really begins, because you've got to appreciate that neural inflammation or brain fog or some of the symptoms you might be dealing with, ADD, ADHD, can't stay focused, can't stay tuned in for a full 8-hour workday. These are ideas that I've learned over the years that I kind of keep in my database to help us appreciate how to balance out the brain. We've got to optimizing nutrition. We've got to take the bull by the horns and assess what you put on a food log. I was looking at a food log yesterday. I had a patient, I told her, I said, look, you can't expect what you don't inspect.
I like that.
And so whenever they looked at that food log and they saw that they were having 2 to 3 diet sodas a day, they were having chocolate, Reese's or M&Ms or some sort of chocolate candy every day, once a day. There was like this specific time, 3:30 in the afternoon. They had it every day. They were starting their day with pastries. They were having some sort of pasta-ish lunch at every day, or a sandwich at lunch, and then they were having some maybe a vegetable or two dinner. But really and truly, of the 6 days that we looked at, there was only 3 vegetables in the entire week, in the entire 6 days. And so that's a major problem. That's a deficiency. And so we want to know what the deficiencies are. We want to understand that when we eat the wrong foods, we are actually driving our body to crave the wrong foods. I mean, if you give in to every one of your cravings, that's the other part of the tongue that is so untamable, is the craving factor. It's not just how we treat other people with our tongue. It's how we treat ourselves with our tongue, and not just in the words, but in are we giving into the cravings? There's nothing below your taste buds that want you to eat all that fake food.
Earlier this year, it's the second year I've done it, where I've actually done a weight loss challenge. And I know that this is probably not Dr. Chapa approved, so I'll put that out there before I say this.
Not Dr. Chapa
Not
approved.
Dr. Chapa approved.
Not Dr. Chapa condoned. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes, but I was doing I'd only do 400 calories a day. So that was my goal, was every day when I hit 400 calories, I was done. And this, again, not approved by anybody. I just wanted to do it. But it was interesting to me after the first few days, how the craving for food went away. Like how your mind was like, I don't need this anymore. So people were like, you're crazy. How can you do that for a whole month, only do 400 calories? And it was literally a mind thing. Like you no longer had that craving for food. You could go, your body responded to be like, okay, this is the new norm. Like this is fine. And by the 30th, 40th day, you're fine. It's not hard.
You have hormones that allow you to get away with stuff like that. Human chorionic gonadotrophin, HCG. That will, when times of famine kick in, when you've taken out the cravings, your body will, when it starts thinking famine, it starts going into these fight or flight responses, just like we talked about earlier, that adaptation of the brain where the brain's looking for survival. Now the brain's saying, dude, where's my next meal? It might not come. Okay, we better go into some conservation methods. We might need to start tapping into our hibernation tactics in order to preserve the vessel so that it can outlive the famine. We don't know how long this famine may last.
The craziest thing that I did that I think was really interesting just to see how your body responds is I would change each day when I was going to eat. So it wasn't like, hey, I got 400 calories at this time every day. Because I knew that my body would then expect, I'm going to get this.
Yes, right.
And then so if I woke up in the morning and did my 400 calories, it would freak your body out.
Yeah.
Your body, my brain or whatever was causing that, could never keep up with what I was doing to it. So then that's how I was able to drop so much weight, because your body couldn't go into conservation mode. It was crazy what happened. It's just interesting to me to see that response.
And I think that at some levels, and then you go into the idea of if you have weight to lose, if you've got, your body will then start using up all the resource. And sooner or later, you're going to tap out. You wouldn't be able to keep up with something like that forever.
No, you couldn't do that forever.
But at the end of the day, you can totally, I was told by one of my mentors that, even in the extreme athletics realm, everybody has about a 2-week reserve. And this is why when people start a workout regimen, they actually jump in too hard, too heavy right out the gate, and they feel great the first couple days, the first week. Yeah, they're a little sore or a lot sore, and they think, man, this is crazy, but I think I can do it. And they keep going, and then by week 2, they catch a cold. And then that, drops them out for 2-3 weeks, and then they're like, okay, I got to get back to the gym because I was feeling really good. They start over, and then they deplete themselves again, and they have another illness of sorts, some other setback. It could be even an injury of sorts where their body is not able to keep up with the workload that they're putting on it because they're not putting in the right fuel. These deficiencies really matter for the brain in its ability to adapt, for the brain's ability to keep up in solving the problems, And so we want to look at how do we maximize these things. So like we're going to talk a little bit today about rebalancing your brain with amino acids. Okay, and this is just generally, hey, let's get some more protein in your diet, and let's make sure that's not just fried food. Let's get some variety of fish, chicken, turkey, eggs, beef. For those lucky enough to indulge in it and get away with it, maybe some pork. But understand that we're going to at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we teach people through our MacroFix program, through our nutrition classes, through just our general evaluation of food logging. Hey, you're not eating enough protein. And if you're not putting enough protein in, you're not getting those amino acids to rebuild and recondition the tissues can't recover and regenerate. Well, that is your brain cells. That limits what the brain can produce in the form of neurochemicals or neurotransmitters, the brain chemicals that drive activity in your brain. And so a healthy brain has to have a healthy gut. 80% of all disease, I've always said, starts in the gut. And I've changed it over the years to be not from 80, but to 100% of all disease, all symptoms start in the gut at some capacity. And they have done so much study. David Perlmutter, I met him one time out in Florida, and he is just launching his book, Grain Brain. And he was talking about the impact of grain on the gut and the gut on the brain and the gut-brain connection and disrupting the neurotransmitter balance. There's 3 million more neurotransmitters. Get this, 3 million more neurotransmitters in your digestive tract than there is in your brain. That means that butterflies that you get in your stomach, that nervous feeling or that sixth sense, that is your gut neurotransmitters that are trying to fly in formation. And if you have a healthy gut balance, which means you have good, healthy prebiotics, you have good probiotic balance, you have good nourishment to stimulate the vitamin A, vitamin C pathways in the digestive tract for your immune system to be healthy and strong digestively, your neurotransmitters will synchronize in the gut, and then they will be interpreted when they're synchronized appropriately in the brain, and your sixth sense is typically correct. How neat is that? Or let's say that it's the whole going back to what you were saying earlier, that extreme sport or that choking out experience or that thing that you're doing, and your body is adapting faster and keeping up with the demands of the world that you are building for it.
I was going to mention earlier, so I'm a huge football fan. We're actually doing Friday Night Football, which is really kind of fun. Like, I really enjoyed doing those kind of things. But I was watching college football on Saturday, and it was the Texas-Alabama game, right? And Alabama had a chance to win the game with like 3 seconds left or something like that to kick the game-winning field goal. And I was thinking about the kid who might be like 19, 20 in college, right? Like significantly younger than I am, right? At this point in my life. And I was thinking about just in his head, all of the thoughts that he could have been going through. What if I miss this? Number one team in the country playing an unranked Texas team in Texas in front of 100,000 people, right? And had the mindset to go and kick a field goal. And I was thinking like, man, think about the placeholder, who has to spin the football the right way and do it that way. And I was just thinking like, man, like in my head, like I would have freaked out. Like I would have spun the ball wrong. You and I have not done that. But then it got me thinking about like that golfer who's going to go make that putt, that 30-foot putt, to win the Masters or something like that. They've experienced that, and they train their mind and they train their body over and over and over and over. I mean, how many kicks has that kicker kicked in his lifetime? How many? So
Well,
it's just crazy how your brain needs that.
Kind of go that direction, because here's another aspect of the brain that's fascinating. So if you think about the process, you got a guy on the line that's going to hike the ball,
Right.
to a guy that's going to catch the ball, place the ball, spin the ball correctly, get his hands out the way so that the kicker can be in motion while this is all happening behind the scenes and the ball's in the air and the kicker's it's all timed perfectly. And then about the time that the placement is perfect, the foot is kicking and making contact with the ball and going through. I mean, like, that sequence of events is what is happening in our body too. Like, it's sequence. Right. And so how, like, our bodies really like habit. So we always say start your day right to end it right, to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water. We talked a little bit about healthy thoughts that are coming through the mind game that we're playing with ourselves. But, when we are putting in healthy food repetitively, and we're giving an amount of allotment of healthy food also regularly, I mean, think of the sequences that the body isn't missing. It's in sync.
Right.
And so everything is flying in formation in order for you to have the next creative thought, or for you to break the plateau, or to have a personal best, or to be able to pass the test. I mean, all those different sequences that you just described, and they build those sequences through their habits. Your brain, I mean, is also building habits. In the book by Tom Cooley, Change Your Habits, Change Your Life, he talks about how the brain takes a lot of energy to build a neural pathway. But once that neural pathway is developed, then it's a habit at that point, and the brain sequences here's the cue, here's the response, here's the result. Here's the cue, here's the response, here's the result, over and over again. It's that repetitive, now we're cycling and practicing that activity regularly. Hopefully, we're practicing things that are healthy for the body more often than that we're practicing things that are destructive to the body. Because if you do enough destructive things to the body, the brain never gets that synchronized flow, and it's always scattered, and it's always trying to build a new pathway instead of just keeping a pathway clear. And so if you don't use it, you lose it. That's where that mindset, that model comes from. And so we want to make sure, again, so we've got amino acids, increased protein. We want to look at, the gut health of the body, probiotics, prebiotics, Cataplex AC, one of my favorites, that has the vitamin A and the vitamin C complex mixed in, acts like a prebiotic. It thickens the gut lining. It makes it robust in the gut lining. We raise your methyl IQ with vitamins and minerals, like with methylation processes with B vitamins. So your body manufactures B vitamins, but there's some Bs that are harder to manufacture, or if you've got an MTHFR genetic glitch, we might need to change the approach on how we get your B vitamin reserves intact. Because if you don't have good methylation pathways, guess what happens? If you're not manufacturing, if these gut bugs aren't manufacturing B vitamins appropriately, you can't detoxify. And if you can't detoxify, now you're become a storage house for toxins, and now we go back to the model of you become what you eat. And you're becoming the sugar-filled lump of dough, and instead of using that energy, you're storing that energy, and you're gaining weight. And I even have a little snippet of information that I picked up, how your body fat threatens your memory. Wow. Obesity is frequently accompanied by lower working memory. Interesting. Specific types of memory that allow people to stay on a specific type of memory that allows people to stay on a weight management program. Understanding the relationship has an important implication for people who want to lose weight. 11,000 participants between the ages of 25 and 34 measured their inflammatory status using a standard marker, CRP, C-reactive protein in the blood, their BMI, obesity marker, and if they were out of sorts, if they were high on these markers, they found that their mental acuity, their mental fortitude, their mental stamina was lower. And so this is a really cool idea that, look, I mean, this is motivation for us to, if you want to live long, if you want to be fully functional in spirit, mind, and body, we've got to look at like how we can reduce body fat, increase muscle mass, and we do that through nutrition. We do that through observation. We do that through healthy intention. Like, what are we doing to be intentional with our day and our, and so we go and we look at how are we going to deal with this. We rebuild the brain with essential fats. One of my very favorite conversations to have with patients at health fairs. We were at a health fair this weekend at the Hometown Heroes there on 96 in League City, and there was a lot of seniors. It was kind of a senior event, and they were doing exercise. If the dude don't move, the dude don't groove, kind of ideas. They didn't steal my thing. No, that was my, but it was awesome to see. They had karate up there, and they had yoga up there, and they have jazzercise up there, and they had, all kinds of movement things for people to be doing and to stay active with. But essential fats, if there was one thing that I could give to a patient, like they could only afford one thing, I would make sure that I got their essential fatty acid balance correct. So we have this cool test in our office. It's like $70 or something, and it's called an Omega Quant test, Omegas, and it measures your omega-3, 6, 9 ratio. It measures the amount of inflammatory cellular fire that you have present in the body systemically throughout, and how many firefighters do you have on staff to go fight that fire. We can test that, a little finger prick, boop, mail it off. 2 weeks later, we get this result back, and it's like 6 pages worth of data. And it'll give you ideas on how much fat you need to be taking in order to balance out your cholesterol ratios. It'll give you how much fat you need to bring in to decrease inflammation in the body, to increase your firefighters in your body, and to make sure that the fire itself isn't running. What you'd rather have is no fire and a healthy amount of firefighters present in case any fire pops up. Boom, we snuff it out. Because when you have low C-reactive protein or high-sensitive C-reactive protein, that inflammatory blood marker that if you're not looking at it, you should be. It's an important factor in your blood to show you that you have degeneration or neural inflammation developing, right? So it's a test and an indicator light, and we can do even further looking at tuna omega, black currant seed oil, which is a high-dose gamma-linoleic acid. We look at fish oils, sardine oil. We look at flaxseed oil in order to maximize the rebuilding facets of fats in the brain. Your brain is a fat vessel. And unfortunately and fortunately, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because when there's times of famine, your brain can resource that fat into energy so that your brain continues to have fuel. Important, because again, I think you're right. The brain is probably the most important vessel outside of the heart. I could make a case that technically can't live without your adrenals either, but I see where you're going. And you've got to have all these synergistic systems working together, but the brain is definitely kind of the integrator of all the systems, and to get all the systems to synchronize and fly right.
Chapa wants to give a participation trophy to all of the body organs together. They're all important.
They are. That's right. And it makes us very excited, So, all right. So now we're looking at antioxidants. All right. What can we do to get antioxidant levels? Well, antioxidants, antioxidation. Okay. We're looking at anti-inflammatory, issues. If you have symptoms of brain fog, you have neural inflammation, you have brain issues arising, and in big or small, it doesn't matter. You want to pay attention to these things, and we want to do things. Vitamin E, we use a product called wheat germ oil. It's a full vitamin E complex. It has more than just vitamin E in it. It has all the tocopherols in it. It has all the selenium and all the factors that God intended to be in the complex of vitamin E in order to be an antioxidant. We use a product, an herbal blend product called Vitanox, which is like it's going to be all, green teas and polyphenols in order to reduce inflammation and different blood builders to improve blood flow. We look at a product called OPC Synergy, which is all about brain inflammatory reduction, and it helps to balance out how the brain can be calm, cool, and collected in those moments where you're putting yourself in a high-stress environment, whether voluntarily, jumping out of an airplane, getting choked out, or involuntarily. Maybe you walk in today and your boss says, you're leading the meeting. And you go, okay. And you're able to adapt that quick, And that's because you have a low inflammatory brain response, and your brain is able to go, I can adapt to that. I can totally, yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about? Oh, we're going to talk a little about this and this, and here's a little sheet that we need to cover, and then you're able to step into the batter's box and take a swing, And that's a cool
thing. Kick the game-winning field goal.
Oh, or kick the game-winning field goal.
I could do it.
Yes, of course you could. And especially with some more practice.
No practice.
That's right. We look at how to get a good night's sleep. We're going back to that sleep, And this is, again, one of the hardest things to do for me whenever I talk about like one particular topic. We're talking about brain inflammation. We're talking about neural degeneration. We're talking about the names and numbers and the words slipping away from you before you can, spit them out. And we want you to go, whoa. That's the check engine light, But where is the source of my problem? Is it because I got a bad night's sleep? I had a lady come in yesterday, and she goes, could that product you gave me, True Adapt, could that, it's a adrenal recovery supplement. It's a really cool product. It's got a lot of like what we call adaptogens in it, and a lot of holy basil cortisol reducers in it, and it has a lot of support in managing how the body is going to recover from stressful events. She goes, could that make me tired? I said, no. But I can tell you what makes you tired is what you just told me 3 minutes ago. You just got a new puppy. And for the last 3 weeks, you haven't been sleeping well. The puppy's making you get up twice a night to, for him to go or her to go out and pee. And she goes, oh, yeah, totally forgot about that. Oh, what? You forgot about that. So poor sleep, poor memory, poor energy. So it's very difficult to just say, oh, well, there's one thing that's going to solve your problem. At Living Well, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to your whole story, and then we're going to extrapolate out where your priority issues are, and so that we can address those. Because when you address the priorities, a lot of times the body fixes itself.
Have you guys developed like cloning yet at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center? Because I feel like that's the only solution for me to get a good night's sleep is like cloning.
Well, yeah, you're right. No, we have not figured out cloning. I know when you're a one-man band, that happens sometimes, and that's that.
Need a clone machine.
We definitely could all probably think to that same idea, but now we've got to figure out how do we recreate you, clone you into another vessel. That's called leadership, right? That's called advancing the cause and
leadership quotes.
Oh, I tell you. All right, so now we're almost done here. So we got several other ideas, but what about when it comes to liver function? Liver function is an important part of your memory because if your liver is not able to keep up with the detox process, then guess what? It's going to get recirculated back through your blood into the brain, potentially getting stored in the brain because it is a fat site, and your brain is going to suffer. That's a major problem. So we've got to make sure that the liver can keep up with the detoxification. We use product called milk thistle or silymarin or dandelion or beets. We use all kinds of food sources to help drive a better liver. Of course, we do some advanced stuff with our detox programs, but simply stated, some simple things that we could do to help get the liver to function better in order to maximize the elimination of toxins. And a toxin, by definition, is just anything your body cannot use, and then in order to help the brain not accumulate waste, but yet allow bandwidth to push your thinking process, your creative process forward, or your kids' inability. Like this morning, as the kids were running out the door, I'm deviating out supplements. All right, come over here. You get this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and I know each kid, and I kind of know what we're trying to do with each one of their brains while and their hormones while they're under pressures of school. We want them to be fully functional, and guess what? a liver product, AF beta food, was one of my favorites. Remember earlier we said, Cataplex A is really good for the gut lining. Well, the A in AF beta food is that same Cataplex A, and it's the full complex of A. There's so much misnomer. They have actually done studies around long-term vitamin A supplementation being extraordinarily beneficial for cognition and long-term memory. But a lot of times you hear, but it can cause birth defects, and it can cause, you have vitamin A toxicity, and we're scaring people when 95% of the population, 98% of the population is never going to ever feel vitamin A toxicity, and we can help people understand how much they need when they're under care at Living Well, and that's what we're always out to do, is to be your number one health and wellness resource. And so then we'll kind of just, finish up by, looking at this last, I could go into exercise as another good brain play for the endorphins. I could look at, the adrenal glands. We could talk a whole show around brain and adrenal connections, but making the adrenal glands more effective in managing stress. But man, I kind of like what you said earlier. You got it. I can't remember exactly where you said it or how you said it, but I was hoping I'd have time to get back to it. And here it is. We have to get our past out of our future. Meaning we can't be dwelling on the mishaps. We can't be, focused on what we can't do or haven't been able to do or haven't accomplished yet.
Right.
We have to look at when we have negative thoughts. If we don't get those negative thoughts out of our thinking, because all that stuff does is cloud up our thought processes, then it's hard for the body to even move forward, even if you have all the good resources, because the power of thought is like, the speed of light. It is so influential. It is so impactful. And again, if what you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And so we want to make sure that when you attack, your health and you're taking the bull by the horns, that you believe at your fundamental core that you can overcome any health challenge that you're faced with, whether it's ADD, ADHD, whether it's just brain fog, and you can't think through your day, or you have, a lack of stamina to power through the whole day. We want to give you the resources and the tools at Living Well in order to be the best version of you. And so that's why we do these shows, and that's why we bring this information to you. And yes, we've talked a lot about of how to influence the brain. But like you said, if the brain is the number one most critical, integrator and point man that we need to take care of, wouldn't it make sense that we have a lot of other factors that play into the brain being its best? It's a team effort. It's leadership. It's more than one player on the field that wins the game.
Knowledge is power.
Oh, that's a great way to end the show today. It's a fantastic
Knowledge is power.
So guys, at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, we believe that all life starts and stops at the cellular level, and nutrition is the driver. If you live well through good, healthy nutritional choices, you're going to be well, and you're going to live well all the days of your life, fully functional in spirit, mind, and body. And we want you to feel your best and live your best day in and day out. So when you're considering living well, give us a call, 281-554-8600. And one last thing, we do have some cool things coming up. We have our November 12th, we have the fun run that we're going to be doing with Anchor Point Ministries down in Nassau Bay. Definitely want to make that as a cool little plug. We want people to come and be a part of what we're doing with this great ministry and saving babies and just having fun and exercise. And then in a couple weeks, we're going to be having our Wellabration at Living Well Clinical Nutrition Center, where we're going to be having giveaways, and we're going to have opportunities to just showcase what our detox programs look like, what our new office facility looks like, and what our event center looks like, and just and telling people more about what it looks like in the application of using a far, mid, near, infrared, full spectrum sauna to maximize ATP production, or to utilize the detoxes to pull trash and chemicals out of the body, or maximize the hydromassage beds in order to relax the body, get the body lymphatically drained so that the system can perform better. I mean, we just got so many cool tools at the new office, and we want to showcase those things, and we're going to invite people out to be at the Wellabration. So make sure that you are there. You're going to be rewarded. You're going to get opportunities to get some sales and opportunities to just see some fun activities and just celebrate, what God has done in our lives through health and wellness, and we just want to share that back with our community. So, guys, y'all have a fantastic, lovely, wonderful day. Kurt, thanks for your services and hospitality. It's always a pleasure.
I think you get me again next week.
Oh,
and the week after. I think.
Man.
I don't know yet.
Well, we'll find out. We're just gonna, pitch hitter. I mean, we'll take you every time.
Just remember, Tuesday is Dr. Chapa's day.
Oh yeah.
You're listening to 99.5 FM KHEA Radio. Still to come, Elevation Worship Never Lost. Stay tuned.